All right, on this episode, I have Paul Soniat. Thank you so much for joining me here for coffee.
Drink a little coffee, do a little talking.
I love the fact that is what we do. I love the fact that you're doing the cafe au lait, coffee and chicory. I feel like that goes with your.
Well, I do drink chicory every morning, so I like a good strong chicory coffee.
Most, and that's one of the things here. You know, it's funny because like we have people that are coming through here from all over the world,
Right.
and we have like the locals that come every morning. So I definitely like when they order like a cafe au lait, and I was like, chicory, right? And somebody, you know, if they're from here, they'll be like, hell yeah, what the hell else? That's why I'm ordering that, you know. And then other people like, you know, chicory, I don't know about the chicory.
What is chicory?
Yeah. They get weirded out. But I mean, for me, it was very important. If I'm doing a New Orleans coffee shop or a New Orleans public market, I'm doing my cafe au laits with that.
Gotta have it.
So that kind of leads me to like your music, because your music, I'm like, and if you're not familiar with Paul's music, I'll put the links below,
Right.
and when you go listen to it, if you ever listen to WWOZ, you're familiar with your work. They play you all the time, and like I guess like you kind of remind me of like, so you're a piano player,
Right.
and so you're kind of like, if you're never familiar with the music, I would describe it as Billy Joel meets Chris Rose. Is that fair?
A lot of people look at it a lot of different ways. You know, I never really took a lot of music lessons. I had a few, so I really kind of developed my own style, I guess. But I love Randy Newman, love Billy Joel. And you know, I think growing up in New Orleans, that New Orleans sound just infuses in you, whether you want to or not. You know?
There's a certain, and I cannot put my finger on it, but there is a certain sound in New Orleans, like R&B,
Yeah.
that is New Orleans.
Right.
There's a rhythm in there.
Yeah.
There's a.
It's kind of like that Latin, you know, Professor Longhair rhythm that people adapt to. Love.
And I can never, like, when I tell people, like, they either call it like rhythm and blues or something, but there's another type of rhythm and blues that when you hear Professor Longhair, even if you're not familiar with this song or
Right.
him or whatever, when that song comes on, you know that is a New Orleans-centric thing.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? When you hear, man, I'm not a... Tipatina, or even like,
Mardi Gras song.
Yeah. Those Mardi Gras songs, definitely. I
Yeah.
mean, they definitely have that. I was thinking, man, I can't come up with the guy's name. Not the mother-in-law guy, but he's a good. Ernie Cato's another
Ernie
one.
Cato.
He's
James Booker.
James
You know,
Booker.
Alan Toussaint. All
Yeah.
of
Oh, yeah. And even stuff that Alan Toussaint has worked on.
Yeah.
Like you hear a top 40 song that he worked on, like in I think some of Paul McCartney's music.
Right.
Like you
incredible.
it's in there.
He was incredible.
Absolutely. So what's your favorite, like, so how do you, because most of your songs, though, your lyrics are, not most of, but I think the ones that OZ plays to death are like, you know, like Born in New Orleans and
Right.
stuff like that. I mean, when you...
Well, you know, what happened with that whole thing, I've been playing piano for like 30 years, but I've never played in public. So as director of the garden, we started these Thursday concerts.
And you're director of the Botanical Gardens in City Park,
Park.
which we will talk about for sure.
Yeah, and we were having these concert series, and we had somebody booked, and he backed out. And this would have been like 2004, the year before Katrina. And then, you know, I always wanted to play, and then somebody said, well, Paul, you play music, why don't you do it? But I don't really play a lot of songs, so I thought about it, and this was about 8 weeks out. I said, okay, I'll do it. Figured if I wrote 10, I had 2 songs, so figured if I had 10 songs, I thought I could get through it.
Get through a show.
And one of
Play them slow.
Yeah, and one of them was Born in New Orleans. But I think my thinking was that, you know, first you should write songs about stuff you know and stuff you love. You know? And it was actually a pretty easy song for me to write because I was born on Soniat Street. So, but you know, I just kind of, you know, there's a song in there about the French Quarter walking down Bourbon Street or this and that. So there's some about New Orleans, not all of them about New Orleans, but of all the albums I did, that first one was more New Orleans, like more of a New Orleans storytelling than anything
And
else.
and definitely whenever I bring your name up about music, definitely that's the one
Yeah.
that's the song that comes up. And when you say it's easy, that just kind of like it was like, oh, that was the easiest one to do, and that just shows you that it's just in you, it came out of you, and people can relate to that
Yeah.
because a lot of people were born here,
Right.
and there's a lot of that. There's an intangible thing about the city that I think that lots of things touch on, and that for certainly is. That song you're like, like it, and even people that are not born here or from here that like fall in love with it, move here,
Right.
which we see a lot of. Those people that they can live vicariously through us through that, and so I think it's awesome.
Yeah, and one of the funny things was, being at the park, you work with people from all over the city, and there's a part of the song that talks about, well, how do you say New Orleans?
Oh yeah,
Some people say New Orleans.
New Orleans.
Some say New Orleans. But the song it says, but you never say New Orleans, because they know you're not from
here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you can use New Orleans in songs like Louis Armstrong.
Yeah. For what
I
I always joke, you can only say New Orleans if you're singing it.
Yeah, because it rhymes better than Orleans.
Orleans,
Orleans.
Orleans, Neens, yeah. Means.
Yeah.
So, Botanical Gardens, definitely want to talk about that. So, you have been the director of the Botanical Gardens now for how long?
Well, since 1982. So
1982. Man, I was
36
born in 1983.
So I've been there longer than you were alive.
You have been the director of them as long as I've been on this earth.
Yeah, and it was an interesting thing. I was doing some landscape and graduated in horticulture, and the Friends of City Park really started that project. And they hired me for 5 years. And they kind of just put a fence around it and said, well, you got 5 years to do something. And, it's tough because City Park doesn't receive funding from anybody. So, you really have to make it on your own. And luckily, at the end of that 5 years, started Christmas in the Oaks. Because that gave us financial footing to do a master plan, to do other things that kept us going for the next 10 years, 15 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because the Botanical Gardens to me, and especially my wife too, because my wife never got in. When we first got married, I was my wife's from Gulfport and I'm the yak, okay? So I'm the one that has to, beautify things. I need my statue of the Blessed Mother and, my plants and stuff, So she never really understood that, but going to the spring and fall garden shows, now she has to go and she wants to get the, you know what I mean? And so, I think that has the Botanical Gardens, it introduced me to it, her to it?
I think it's introduced the city to a lot of different plants that people... When I look back in '82 when I started and what people were growing in the yards and their gardens, a lot
Ligustrums and azaleas.
There weren't many perennials. There wasn't much blooming in the summer, but now you can have stuff all year. And, spring and fall always the best, but you can still survive the summer with different perennials, different annuals, different tropicals.
Yeah.
And so I think we've been a great resource on that.
Yeah, because when we looking at, I walk through there all the time, and it's like, oh, look at this is growing good here. Or my aunt is a huge into the Botanical Gardens, and anytime I'll get a plant, she'll be like, oh, in the Botanical Gardens they had it on the east side of it. You know what I mean? So it's definitely like what you're doing there.
Right.
Is the landscape of the city.
Yeah,
do you realize that?
It helps people understand. Well, that's a good compliment. Right?
Yeah.
But
because sometimes when you're too close to things, you don't see it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And there's that cool new fountain, and it's just you keep improving.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
And one of the things I really like too, like you were talking about our entrance now, is the Thomas Center with a new fountain and a green wall, which is totally different than that was open about a year ago now. But 2 years ago we opened that. Enrique Alferez was the Hellas Foundation Enrique Alferez Sculpture Garden. Enrique Alferez was a sculptor that did work in City Park and the Botanical Garden in the 1930s.
Okay.
And he
so it's those Art Deco-y kind of ones.
And he still was doing work for us in the 1990s. So over a period of 60 years, he produced art. And unfortunately died at 98 in 1999. but we were able to create a whole garden just of his sculpture, and I think it's a really beautiful sculpture garden. And one of the things we are start doing in October, every Wednesday evening, we're free on Wednesdays to the Botanical Garden.
okay.
As compliments of the Hellas Foundation. But on Wednesday evening, we stay open late till 8 o'clock. We have Latin music, the garden, Alvarez.
Every Wednesday?
During October.
During October.
Yeah.
Okay, so every Wednesday during October, which is coming up.
Yeah, it's called Evenings with Enrique. We have a little music, usually Latin music, mojitos.
There
we
we
have
go.
a food truck, and it's just a beautiful, calm place to be. I mean, it's a really,
You're gonna come
you
check
really
that
need to
out.
experience it. It's hard to explain.
And I guess things come in and out of waves, and now like house plants are like in vogue. Like I gotta switch the plants out here at the coffee shop all the time, and people want to Instagram. There's plants and Instagram are huge.
Yeah.
But one of the coolest things, and if you've never been to that's in vogue right now, that is I've never seen anything, is your succulent.
Yeah.
And they're hundreds of years. What's the deal with those succulents? Some of them are gigantic. They've been around forever.
Succulents are basically plants that can take really arid or dry conditions. You usually say cacti and succulents. Succulents usually have a little thicker leaves, but they're really interesting plants. I mean, they're plants that over time have evolved to survive very harsh conditions. So they've done a lot of things.
So like when baristas forget to water the plants, succulents are great for the coffee shop.
And that's why people like them. I mean, they're durable as long as they get enough light. You don't have to watch them too much.
But you have that great display of them there.
Yeah, we have a very nice collection. Someone had donated years ago in one of our greenhouses.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting, all the variety.
That's super cool. And I think people like that are into succulents really ought to go check that out because, most of the succulents you see are, that tall or that tall, and they're around. But those, you have gigantic ones because they're so old.
Right.
And that's just really, really, really neat. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the role of a garden is to show different varieties of plants and different landscape styles and things you could do at your home or things you could do in your patio. One of the things we're working on now, we hope to have open, hopefully this time next year, we raise more money. We're building an outdoor kitchen in our vegetable garden where we can do demonstrations and programs. We'll have a pizza oven. We'll have a wood-burning oven where we can do a whole cochon de lait if we wanted. Plus, it's very instructional. I mean, just about everything you eat comes from the garden.
You got food, you got music, you got gardens.
Yeah.
So it's funny, so you've been doing this for so long now, like I said, longer than I've been alive. But you haven't gotten stale with it. Sometimes when you do things for a long time, you get stale.
I think the thing is you always got to keep, and I thought about that, it's never been boring because we're always working on something. Mm-hmm. When it was early on, it was trying to survive and get the garden, and then started Christmas in the Oaks, and after that did a plan, and then we raised money for the pavilion and got that open and had a new entrance. And then we did different gardens and then the conservatory.
And it's all come together and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean, we still want to expand our conservatory. We want to build an outdoor kitchen and a few other things,
Well, I'm going to look forward to it. So real quick, and I'll put the links down below. So in October, the Wednesdays in October, you got Latin music and mojitos.
Yeah,
I'm
evenings with Enrique.
Evenings with Enrique, and then on Thursdays you said you have?
Thursdays we have our concert series. Thursdays at Twilight.
Okay.
That run all the way from the second week in January to mid-November.
Okay.
So it's like 48 concerts.
Wow.
And there we have a variety of music from John Butte to Tim Laughlin was there last night. We have rhythm and blues. We have Wanda Ruzan was there a few weeks ago. I mean, she's incredible.
That's so cool. I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, me and my story, I've got a weird king cake to coffee story. So I think it's fun. It's funny that, like how we kind of like transition from, different things and how the Botanical Gardens got you into music and how you continue to grow that. Now back to food. It's
and the series now I feel like I'm a club owner, Because, we started that and we said, well, let's do we started it actually for the bicentennial of the Louisiana Purchase.
Oh,
So that would have been 2003, I believe. 2002 or 3. But anyway, we started, it was like 4 weeks, and then the next year, people liked it, so we went to 8 weeks. And then we said, well, let's do spring and fall. And then they said, well, let's do spring, summer, and fall. And then people got mad when we
Stop.
cut it off early. So then we started in January. So now it's pretty much.
It's pretty much almost all year. And then okay, so one more thing, the tricentennial's coming up. So I'm sure that y'all are doing some cool stuff for that.
Well, actually, the Friends have hired me to
Friends of City Park
to write some music. What they're going to do is a train ride through City Park.
Okay, on the little train.
Where people would be on the train, they'd have actors, and they would talk about the history of City Park. They would go for a little while and maybe stop and then talk about live oaks, and then I'll write a song about live oak trees, and then Bayou Metairie, and then the Paris style, and WPA, and so it's going to be a lot of fun.
So it's like the history of the park.
The history of the park through, told
meets music
through music and narration. So it should be fun.
There's going to be so many things going on all over town for the tricentennial. It's going to be cool. So that's awesome that y'all are doing that.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much,
Two
man.
cups of coffee. I mean, it's wonderful.
Too much. If we did the show again, you would get through it in half the time.
There you go.
Thank you so much for coming, Paul.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
All right.